The big round station floated high above a quiet gas giant, and everyone called it Harmony Spire, because the name sounded nice for peace talks and fights between species. The station had a huge clear dome in the middle, and inside that dome sat the famous arena, where creatures battled to show who ruled the food chain on their home worlds. This event happened only once every 100 years, and leaders from many star empires came to watch and show off their best killers. Delegations arrived one after another in shiny ships that docked with soft clicks. The Krellith came first, and they looked like tall insects with hard black shells and many arms. Their ambassador wore bright red ribbons and walked with slow, proud steps. They brought their Voidfang behemoth, a monster that weighed 4 tons and had thick armor plates, plus long, sharp teeth dripping green venom. This beast hunted in packs on their dark, cold planet and could tear through metal doors like paper. The Krellith said their Voidfang was nature's perfect death machine, and no other creature could stand against it in open battle. Next came the Vorak, who floated in on soft purple clouds because they did not walk on legs. Their bodies were thin and pale, and their eyes glowed white. They carried a special tank full of tiny flying bugs that worked as one mind. The Neural Scourge could think as a group and send thoughts into enemy heads to make them freeze or run in fear. The Vorak ambassador spoke in a calm whisper and told everyone that true power came from control, not just brute strength. Their swarm had broken armies on many worlds without spilling much blood. Then the mighty Zarvin arrived, and the whole station grew quiet, because everyone knew they were the strongest empire right now. Their ships were long and silver, and looked like knives cutting through space. The Zarvin delegation stepped out wearing gold armor that shone under the lights. Their leader was a tall female named Vexara, with deep blue scales and sharp horns curving back from her head. She smiled, with many teeth, and said nothing at first. She just pointed to the huge cage her team rolled forward. Inside that cage stood the Apex Sovereign, the pride of Zarvin science. This creature measured 3 meters tall when it stood straight, and its body looked like smooth black stone mixed with living muscle. Red eyes glowed on its narrow head, and claws longer than human arms curved from each finger. The Apex Sovereign came from thousands of years of careful gene work. The Zarvin changed its body over generations until it could heal fast, grow thicker armor when hurt, and learn from every fight in seconds. Vexara spoke at last, and her voice carried across the station. "This is the end of evolution," she said. "No predator in the galaxy can match its speed, its power, its mind, or its will to win." All the other aliens clapped and cheered because they respected the Zarvin and feared them too. The arena lights dimmed for a moment, brightened again to show the schedule. Everyone waited for the last name on the list: humanity. The human ship looked small and plain compared to the others. It had dense and old paint, and one engine made funny noises when it docked. A single person walked out: Sergeant Riley Kane from Australia. He wore a simple green uniform with no fancy decorations, and carried nothing but a small metal box on wheels. The box had thick walls and a sign that read, "Do not open until arena." Kane had short brown hair, a scar across one cheek, and a calm face that showed almost nothing. The other delegates stared at him. Some laughed quietly. The Krellith ambassador clicked his mandibles in amusement. The Vorak tilted their heads like they felt sorry for him. Vexara crossed her arms and looked down at the human with narrow eyes. She asked in a loud voice, "Is this all Earth sends? 1 man and 1 tiny crate? We expected more from the new species that claims to survive anything." Kane stopped walking, looked up at her. He smiled a little and said in a relaxed voice, "Mate size ain't everything." He patted the top of the crate gently and kept walking toward the guest area. The crowd murmured, More laughs came from different corners. Someone shouted, "What is in the box? A pet mouse? Perhaps a trained bird?" Kane did not answer. He found his seat near the edge of the viewing deck and sat down with his legs stretched out. He pulled a small drink from his pocket, opened it, and took a slow sip while he watched the screens show replays of old battles. The other humans who came as support staff stayed quiet near him. They knew better than to talk loud when Kane looked relaxed like that. The trials started with warm-up matches. First, the Voidfang behemoth fought a fake prey drone and ripped it apart in 3 seconds. The crowd roared approval. Next, the Neural Scourge faced a group of robot fighters and made them turn on each other until nothing moved. The Vorok ambassador bowed politely. Came the main show. The Zarvin opened the big cage, and the Apex Sovereign stepped out. It moved smooth and fast, like water over rocks. It turned its head slowly and looked at every face in the crowd. Red eyes seemed to judge them all. Vexara spoke again. "This creature has never lost. Not in tests, not in war games, not in real hunts. It adapts, it survives, it conquers. That is why we are the top empire." The Arena AI voice announced the next fight. Earth against Sarvin. The crowd grew excited because nobody thought it would last long. Kane stood up slowly. He walked down the ramp to the arena floor, dragging the crate behind him. When he reached the center, he stopped and looked around at the tall walls and the thousands of eyes watching him. He knelt and pressed buttons on the crate's sides. Lights blinked green, and a soft hiss came out. Cold air puffed into the warm arena. The door slid open slow. Kane reached inside with both hands and lifted something small and angry. Out came Baza, wolverine that weighed only 15 kilograms. His fur was dark brown mixed with gold, and his eyes burned with pure wildfire. Small sharp teeth showed when he snarled, and his short legs stood firm on the ground. The crowd exploded with laughter. It sounded like thunder rolling around the dome. The Krellith laughed hardest. Their mandibles clicked fast. The Vorok floated back a little in surprise. Vexara stared without blinking. Then she started to laugh too. She pointed at the tiny animal and said, "You bring this little beast against our sovereign? You mock us, human." Kane looked at her straight. He shrugged once and said, "Nah, I just brought the one thing that doesn't know when to quit." He stepped back to the safe line and crossed his arms. Baza stood alone in the middle of the huge floor, sniffing the air and growling low in his throat. The arena force fields dropped with a quiet hum. The Apex Sovereign lowered its body and charged forward, claws out and mouth open, to crush the small creature in one bite. The crowd leaned forward, ready to see a fast end. Kane just watched with the same calm face. He took another sip from his drink and muttered under his breath, "Good luck, little mate. Show 'em how it's done." The warm-up fights finished fast, and the big screens showed highlights of each victory. The crowd noise grew louder with every new clip. Everyone felt excited, because the real main event came next. The arena lights turned low, then flashed bright again to signal the start of the exhibition matches against live opponents. The first real test pitted the Voidfang behemoth against a borrowed pack of armored drones from the Krellith fleet. The monster charged and crushed them all in under 10 seconds. Metal flew everywhere, and green venom burned holes in the floor. The Krellith ambassador raised all his arms in triumph, and the cheers shook the dome. Next, the Neural Scourge faced 5 big combat robots. The tiny bugs swarmed out of their tank and filled the air like dark smoke. They linked minds and sent sharp thoughts into the robot brains. The machines froze, then turned their guns on each other, and fired until only smoking wrecks remained. The Vorok floated higher, and their pale eyes glowed brighter. The crowd clapped politely, because they expected that kind of win from the mind controllers. Then the arena cleared, and the biggest cage rolled forward again. The Zarvin team opened the heavy doors with slow ceremony. The apex sovereign stepped out into the light. It moved with perfect grace, and every muscle showed under its black scales. The creature stood tall and looked around at the thousands of watching faces. Its red eyes narrowed, and it opened its mouth to show rows of sharp teeth. Vexara walked to the edge of the viewing platform and spoke in a clear, strong voice. "This is our apex sovereign, the final form of predation after thousands of years of work. It runs faster than any hunter. It hits harder than any beast. It heals from wounds that would kill others. It thinks and adapts in the middle of battle. No creature anywhere has ever beaten it in fair combat. Today you will see why we rule the stars." She pressed a button, and a line of holographic prey appeared in arena. Small, fast animals ran in circles. The sovereign moved like lightning. It caught one in mid-leap, snapped its neck, and threw the body aside. Then it chased the next and the next, until all 10 holograms vanished in less than a minute. The crowd roared, loud enough to hurt ears. Vexara smiled wide and turned to the other ambassadors. "See," she said, "perfection." The arena AI spoke next. "Exhibition match complete. Now the cross-species challenge begins. First bout, Zarvin Apex Sovereign versus Vorak Neural Scourge." The Vorak ambassador looked calm. He opened his tank wider, and the swarm poured out thick and buzzing. The bugs formed a dark cloud and flew straight at the sovereign. The big creature did not move at first. It stood still and let the swarm surround it. Then something strange happened. The sovereign's scales started to change color. They turned shiny silver, and small sparks jumped across its body. The bugs touched the scales and dropped dead, one by one. Electric pulse. The swarm tried to regroup, but the sovereign raised one claw and swiped fast. The motion sent a shockwave that scattered the remaining bugs across the floor like rain. Vexara laughed out loud and said, "Even your minds cannot touch what we built." The Vorak ambassador bowed low and said nothing more. The crowd cheered again, and many started to chant, "Sovereign, sovereign." The name echoed off the walls. Kane sat in his seat, with arms crossed. He watched everything, without changing his face. When the noise died down a little, he stood up slow and walked toward the arena ramp. The other humans followed him, quiet, and stayed back when he reached the gate. The arena AI announced the next fight: Earth Representative versus Zarvin Apex Sovereign. The crowd laughed again, because they thought it was a joke. Some aliens pointed at the small metal crate Kane dragged behind him. Others made bets on how many seconds the fight would last. Vexara leaned forward on her platform and called, "What is your plan, human? Do you think your little box holds a dragon? A monster we have not seen? Perhaps a weapon disguised as an animal?" Kane stopped at the center line. He set the crate down and looked up at her. He spoke loud enough for the microphones to catch every word. "Nah, mate, I brought something better than a dragon. I brought a wolverine." The word wolverine sounded strange to most ears, and more laughter rolled through the stands. Kane ignored it. He knelt and pressed the release buttons. Cold white vapor hissed out, and the front panel slid open. Baza jumped out fast. He landed on all 4 paws and shook his thick fur. The wolverine looked around with bright, fierce eyes. His small body looked tiny on the huge arena floor. He bared his teeth and let out a deep growl that surprised everyone because it sounded much louder than something so small should make. The crowd laughed harder. Some aliens wiped tears from their eyes. The Krellith ambassador clicked fast and said, "This is the best joke we have seen in centuries." Vexara crossed her arms tighter. She stared at Baza, then at Kane. "You insult us," she said. "You bring a small earth animal to face our sovereign. This is not a challenge. This is disrespect." Kane met her eyes and shrugged. "I don't disrespect anyone. I just know what wins when everything else loses." He stepped back behind the safety line and folded his arms again. Baza paced a small circle, sniffing the air and growling low. The sovereign watched from the opposite gate. Its red eyes locked on the tiny creature, and its tail flicked once. The arena force fields hummed to life and sealed the floor. The AI voice counted down. 3, 2, 1, fight! The gate on the far side opened wide. The apex sovereign burst forward. It crossed the arena in 3 huge strides, claws extended and mouth open wide, ready to end the fight in one bite. The crowd leaned in close, expecting blood and a quick finish. Baza did not run. He stood his ground and snarled louder. Short legs braced, and his whole body tensed like a spring. The sovereign swung one massive claw down fast. The strike would crush stone. The claw hit the spot where Baza stood, and dust flew up. The crowd cheered, thinking it was over. But Baza moved. He dodged sideways at the last second, and the claw scraped the floor, leaving deep grooves. Baza spun and jumped. He latched onto the sovereign's front leg with all 4 paws and teeth. His jaws clamped down hard, right above the joint. The big creature roared in surprise and shook its leg hard. Baza held on tight. His teeth sank deeper through scales and into muscle. Blood started to drip, dark and thick. The sovereign swung again, trying to smash the small attacker against the ground. Baza let go at the perfect moment and rolled away. He landed on his feet and charged right back. This time he aimed higher. He climbed the sovereign's leg like it was a tree and bit into the thick muscle of the thigh. It roared again, but this roar sounded different. It had pain in it. The crowd noise changed. Some cheers stopped and murmurs started. Vexara stood up straight. Her face lost its smile. She stared hard at the arena. Kane stayed calm. He watched with the same relaxed look and muttered soft words to himself. "Good boy, Baza. Keep going, mate." The wolverine tore another chunk free, and blood sprayed across the floor. The sovereign tried to grab him with its other claw, but Baza was too fast. He dropped down and darted between the big legs, then jumped again. This time, he aimed for the soft spot under the jaw. The fight had only just started, but already the perfect predator bled from many places. The aliens in the stands began to whisper. They had never seen the sovereign bleed before. Kane took a slow sip from his drink and smiled a little. The tiny wolverine kept fighting, like the size of his enemy meant nothing at all. The apex sovereign swung its massive claw again, and this time it connected hard. Baza flew across the arena like a dark rag. Blood sprayed from his side, and he hit the far wall with a heavy thud. The crowd exploded in cheers, because they thought the small animal was finished. The sovereign stood tall and roared loud, showing all its teeth. Vexara raised one fist in victory and shouted, "See, this is what happens when you challenge perfection. The tiny earth creature bleeds and breaks just like everything else." But Baza did not stay down. He rolled over, slow at first, then pushed up on shaky legs. Blood matted his fur, and one ear hung torn, yet his eyes still burned bright. He shook his whole body hard, like he wanted to throw off the pain. Then he snarled again. The sound cut through the cheers and made some aliens stop clapping. The wolverine lowered his head and charged straight back at the giants. The sovereign looked surprised for a split second. It had expected the fight to end, raised a claw to swat the small attacker away. But Baza was faster. He ducked under the swing and jumped high. He clamped his jaws around the thick tendon behind the sovereign's knee. The bite went deep, and the big creature staggered. Its leg buckled, and it almost fell. The roar turned into a hiss of pain. Blood poured down the black scales in thick streams. Baza let go and darted away. He circled fast, keeping low to the ground. The sovereign spun, trying to face him, but the hurt leg slowed it down. Baza saw the opening. He rushed in again and bit the same spot harder. This time he shook his head side to side, like he wanted to tear the muscle free. The sovereign thrashed wild and slammed its other claw down. Baza rolled clear just in time. The claw gouged the floor, and sparks flew. The crowd noise changed. It started quiet, then grew into confused murmurs. They had never seen the sovereign struggle before. Vexara gripped the rail tight. Her blue scales paled a little. Whispered to her aide, "Stop this farce now." The aide shook his head. "The rules say the fight continues until one side can no longer move or yields." Kane stood at the edge, with arms still crossed. He watched every move without blinking. Once he nodded slight when Baza dodged another strike. He muttered soft, "Good on you, mate. Don't let up." The Wolverine heard nothing, but he acted like he did. He kept attacking, never stopping, never backing down. The sovereign tried to use its speed. It lunged forward and snapped its jaws. Baza twisted sideways, and the teeth missed by inches. The big predator followed with a tail whip that could break bones. Baza jumped over it and landed on the sovereign's back. He dug all four paws in and bit the thick neck muscle right where scales met softer skin. The sovereign reared up high and roared so loud the force fields shook. Baza held on tight. His teeth sank deeper with every shake. The sovereign reached back with both claws, trying to pull the small fury off. Blood ran down its shoulders now and dripped onto the arena floor. The crowd went almost silent. Many aliens stood up to see better. Some covered their mouths in shock. The perfect killer bled from a dozen places, and still the little Wolverine would not let go. The sovereign slammed itself against the wall to crush Baza. The impact cracked scales on its own side. Baza grunted, but kept biting. He climbed higher toward the head. The sovereign shook harder, and finally threw him off. Baza hit the ground rolling and came up fast. One eye swelled shut, and his ribs showed through torn fur, yet he snarled again and charged. This time he went low. He slid under the sovereign's belly and bit the soft inside of the thigh. The big creature howled and jumped back. Its movements looked clumsy now. The adaptive biology tried to work. Scales thickened over the worst wounds, and the bleeding slowed. But Baza did not care about armor. He attacked the joints, the eyes, the throat, anything soft. Hurt, the sovereign swung wild and caught Baza with a glancing blow. The Wolverine spun through the air and landed hard. He coughed once, red foam on his lips. Then he stood up slow and shook himself again. The crowd gasped loud, because no normal animal should stand after hits like that. Vexara shouted at the arena AI, "End this now. He is too small to win fairly." The AI voice answered calm, "Combat continues until forfeit, incapacitation, or death. No exceptions." Kane smiled small. He took another sip from his drink and said under his breath, "That's my boy." The sovereign breathed heavy now. Its red eyes looked wild and angry. It lowered its body and stalked forward slow, trying to corner the Wolverine. Baza backed up step by step, but never turned his back. He growled, constant, deep, and mean. The sovereign made its mistake. It lunged too far forward, thinking it could pin the small animal. Baza dodged left and jumped right onto the outstretched foreleg. He ran up the arm like it was a ramp, and reached the shoulder. From there he bit the base of the neck, where the spine almost showed. The sovereign froze for a second, then thrashed so hard it lost balance. It fell to one knee, and Baza stayed locked on, shaking his head with all his strength. Blood poured now in rivers. The sovereign's roars turned into gurgles. It clawed at its own neck, trying to reach the attacker, but its arms could not bend far enough. Baza kept biting deeper, ignoring the claws that raked his back. His fur hung in strips, and more bones showed, but he never stopped. The crowd stood silent now. No cheers, no laughs, only shocked faces. Vexara slammed her fist on the rail and yelled, "No, no, this cannot happen. The sovereign is unbeaten." The aide next to her said nothing. He just stared, wide-eyed. The big creature staggered to its feet one last time. It shook once more, and Baza flew off. He hit the ground and rolled, but came up growling. The sovereign took 2 steps, then its legs gave out, knees, and lowered its head. Blood pooled under it fast. The red eyes dimmed a little, and the massive chest heaved hard. Baza circled slow, never taking his good eye off the giant. He limped bad now, and every breath looked painful, yet he still snarled low and dangerous. The sovereign tried to lift one claw, but it fell back weak. The perfect predator made one last sound. Not a roar this time, a small broken whimper. Then it collapsed forward, face down in its own blood. The arena went dead quiet, except for Baza heavy breathing. He stood over the huge body for a moment, then turned away. He limped toward the safety line, leaving red footprints behind him. When he reached the spot near Kane, he flopped down hard and started licking the worst cuts, like nothing big happened. Kane knelt slow. He reached out gentle and checked the wolverine. Baza grumbled, but let him touch. Med drones buzzed in fast, but Kane waved them back for a second. He looked up at the silent crowd and spoke clear over the open channel. You lot spent centuries making the perfect killer. We spent hours surviving one that doesn't know what enough means. That's the difference between your predators and ours. He picked Baza up careful. The small animal growled soft, but rested his head on Kane's arm. Kane stood and walked out of the arena. As he passed the Varvin platform, he looked straight at Vexara and added one last thing. Next time, maybe bring something that can take a joke. The dome stayed quiet long after they left. Only the sound of dripping blood broke the silence. The Apex Sovereign lay still, and the little Wolverine had won. The Apex Sovereign lay on its side, now breathing in short, ragged gasps. Blood pooled wide under its neck and chest. The once perfect black scales looked cracked and dull in the bright arena lights. Baza limped a slow circle around the fallen giant. His own body looked broken. Fur hung loose in bloody strips. One eye stayed shut tight, and his ribs pushed out sharp against torn skin. Every step hurt, yet he kept moving, low growl never stopping. The crowd remained dead quiet. Thousands of eyes watched, unable to look away from the impossible scene. Vexara gripped the rail so hard, her claws bent metal. She stared down with wide eyes and shouted loud, "Stop the fight now. This has gone far enough." The Sovereign yields. The arena AI answered flat. No formal forfeit has been given. Combat continues until forfeit, incapacitation, or death. Rules are absolute. Vexara turned to her team, frantic. Do something. Override it somehow. An aide shook his head fast. The station is neutral. The AI follows the ancient code. No one can change it. In the arena, the Sovereign stirred. It pushed up slow on trembling front legs. Blood dripped from its open mouth in thick strings. The red eyes flickered back to life with pure hate. It saw the small Wolverine still circling and let out a weak roar that sounded more like pain than threat. Baza stopped moving. He planted his paws wide and snarled back louder than before. The sound echoed sharp and mean across the dome. The big creature lunged one last desperate time. It swung both claws down together, trying to crush Baza flat. The Wolverine dodged sideways at the last heartbeat. The claws hit empty floor and cracked stone. The Sovereign overbalanced and fell forward hard. Its jaw slammed open against the ground. Baza saw the chance. He darted in fast and jumped straight for the throat. The soft spot under the jaw hung exposed where scales never fully grew thick. Baza latched on with everything he had, jaws clamped shut like steel traps. Teeth sank deep into warm flesh and arteries. He shook his head side to side, violent and fast. Blood sprayed in wide arcs, hitting the force fields with wet slaps. The Sovereign reared back high. It clawed at its own neck, trying to reach the attacker. The huge fingers scraped scales off, but could not pry the small fury loose. Panic filled the red eyes now. The perfect predator made sounds no one ever heard before. High, broken whimpers mixed with choking gurgles. The crowd gasped loud. Some aliens turned their faces away. Others leaned closer, unable to believe what they saw. Vexara screamed, "No, no, stop it!" Her voice cracked for the first time. The Sovereign thrashed wild. It rolled side to side, slamming its body against the arena walls to dislodge Baza. Each crash shook the dome, but the Wolverine held tight. His legs locked around the thick neck, and his bite never loosened. Blood ran down in rivers, soaking Baza completely, turning his dark fur blacker. The Sovereign staggered forward 3 steps, then its legs gave out. It dropped to its knees again. The massive head lowered slow and heavy. Baza stayed locked on, shaking harder now. The big creature tried one final push. It lifted its head high and roared weak. Then it fell forward face first into the growing pool of blood. The impact sent ripples through the red puddle. Baza let go at last. He dropped to the ground and rolled away, coughing hard. The Sovereign twitched, once, twice, then it went still. Chest no longer moved. Red eyes stared blank at nothing. The arena stayed silent, except for Baza's heavy, wet breaths. He lay on his side for a long moment, then pushed up slow. Every part of him shook. He limped forward a few steps, dragging one back leg. Blood trailed behind him in a thin line. He stopped near the dead giant, and looked up, snarling once more, low and tired. The message was clear. This fight belongs to me. Kane walked through the safety gate, calm as ever. He knelt beside Baza and checked him gentle. Hands moved careful over broken ribs, torn fur. Deep cuts. Baza grumbled soft, but did not snap. He let Kane touch him. Med drones hummed close, ready to inject painkillers and seal wounds. Kane held up one hand to stop them for a second. He looked around at the shocked faces, high in the stands. Then he spoke, clear and loud, over the open channel. You spent thousands of years building something unbeatable. Something that adapts, and heals, and kills without mercy. We didn't build anything. We just survived the things that already existed on our world. Things that don't quit when they should. Things that fight until nothing moves anymore. That's what a Wolverine is. That's what we brought. That's what won today. He scooped Baza up slow and careful. The small animal rested heavy in his arms, head against Kane's chest. Baza growled once more, weak but proud. Kane stood straight and turned toward the exit. As he passed under the Zarvan platform, he looked up at Vexara. She stood frozen, face pale, scales dull. Her mouth hung open. No words came out. Her a small nod and said quiet. Next round maybe try something with a bit of quit in it. Might last longer. He walked out slow, carrying the battered Wolverine. The med drones followed close, injecting medicine and wrapping cuts as they moved. The dome stayed quiet long after the gate closed. No cheers, no angry shouts. Only the soft drip of blood and the hum of machines cleaning the floor. The Apex Sovereign lay dead center of the arena, a symbol of perfect predation brought low by 15 kilograms of pure stubborn fury. Outside the arena, Kane found a quiet bench near the human section. He sat down gentle and laid Baza across his lap. The Wolverine licked one paw slow, then closed his good eye. Kane stroked the thick fur, careful around the worst wounds. He muttered soft, "You're a right proper bastard, mate. Took on a monster twice your size and then some." Baza huffed once like he agreed. Other humans gathered close, but kept distance. They knew Kane liked quiet after fights like this. Young Tech asked low. Is he going to be okay? Kane nodded. Yeah, tougher than he looks. Give him a week, he'll be chewing boots again. The group laughed, quiet, nervous, relieved. The mood felt strange. Victory tasted real, but nobody expected it to come this way. Back inside the dome, Vexara finally moved. She walked down to the arena floor. Slow steps, heavy. Her team followed behind, quiet. She stopped near the body of the sovereign and stared down long. The blue scales on her face looked duller than before. She reached out one hand and touched the cold scales. No one spoke. She whispered to herself, "This cannot be real." Then louder to her aides, "Get the body prepped. We leave tonight. No more words, no speeches." The other delegations started to leave too. Krelith moved fast, wanting distance. Vorak floated away, silent and thoughtful. Whispers spread through the halls already. Stories of the small earth animal that would not die. Stories of the human who smiled, while his beast tore apart perfection. Station AI announced the trial results in flat voice. Earth wins by incapacitation. Zarvan Sovereign defeated. No rematch requested. Kane stayed on the bench until med drones finished their work. Baza slept, now breathing steady under bandages. Kane lifted him again and carried him toward the human ship. As they passed through corridors, aliens stepped aside. Some stared, some bowed low. None laughed anymore. Kane ignored them all. He kept his eyes forward and muttered to the sleeping Wolverine. "Rest up, little mate. We got a reputation to keep now." The small, dented ship waited at the dock, engines already warming. Kane stepped aboard last. He laid Baza in a soft crate, lined with blankets. Then he turned to the pilot and said, "Home. Take us home." The engines hummed louder, and the ship pulled away from Harmony Spire. Behind them, the station lights dimmed slow. The galaxy just learned something new about humans. They did not build the best killers. They just brought the ones that never stopped. The small human ship pulled away from Harmony Spire slow and steady. Engines hummed soft as the station grew smaller in the rear-view screens. Inside the main cabin, Kane sat on a low bench with Baza stretched across his lap. The Wolverine slept deep under fresh bandages. White gauze wrapped his ribs, his back, and one missing eye spot. Medicine dripped slow into a small line taped to his paw. Kane kept one hand on the thick fur, stroking gentle every few minutes. Baza twitched once in his sleep, then settled again, breathing even. Around them, the rest of the human crew worked quiet. They checked systems, cleaned gear, and spoke in low voices. No one bothered Kane right now. They knew the look on his face, calm but far away, like he replayed every second of the fight in his head. A young medic named Lena came over and knelt close. She checked the monitors attached to Baza and nodded, satisfied. "He is stable," she said. "Heart strong, no internal bleeding. He really is as tough as you said." Small smile. "Yeah, tougher." The medic stood up and walked away, leaving them alone again. Back on the station, things moved fast. The big dome lights dimmed low as delegations packed up ships. Ships undocked one after another, leaving trails of light in the dark. The Zarvan vessel left last. Long silver hull gleamed cold as it turned and accelerated away. Vexara stood on her bridge, staring at the empty arena feed on the main screen. The body of the Apex Sovereign had been removed already, cleaned, hauled away like trash. She clenched her fists tight. Blue scales stood out sharp against pale skin. Her second-in-command stepped close and spoke quiet. "We lost more than a fight today, Ambassador. The galaxy saw weakness. They will remember Kane and that small beast." Vexara did not answer at first. She kept watching the replay loop. Baza jumping, climbing, biting, never stopping. Finally she spoke low. "Then let them remember. Let them fear what comes when they challenge Earth again." News spread quick through the galactic nets. First short clips leaked out. Grainy footage of the Sovereign falling. Then clearer high-angle shots of Baza standing over the body. Aliens who missed the live event watched in shock, and replayed the moments again and again. Forums filled with debates. Some called it a fluke. Others said the Sovereign must have been sick. A few brave voices admitted the truth. The human brought something different. Something that did not fight smart or clean. It fought mean and endless. The word Wolverine started appearing in alien languages. New symbols, new sounds for a creature most had never heard of before. On distant worlds, stories grew. In Krelith hives, workers whispered about the tiny monster that bled a giant dry. In Vorok cloud cities, elders gathered and discussed how mind control failed against raw, stubborn will. Traders carried the tale to fringe stations, where rough species listened close and laughed nervous. Some even started looking for Earth animals, wondering what other surprises the backwater planet hid. Back on the human ship, days passed quiet. Baza woke slow at first. He tried to stand, but his legs shook. Kane helped him down to the deck, gentle. The Wolverine limped around the cabin, sniffing corners, growling at shadows like nothing changed. After a week the bandages came off. Scars showed thick and ugly across his body, but muscles still moved strong. He started chewing boots again, stealing food from plates, and snarling at anyone who got too close. The crew laughed more now. They brought him treats, scraps of meat, bits of bone. Baza accepted them all, with grumpy huffs. Kane watched from his seat and said nothing. He just smiled small every time Baza looked his way. Earth Command sent messages, priority channels full of questions and praise. They wanted details, reports, interviews. Kane sent back short text only. Fight happened, Baza won. End of story. Command pushed for more, but he ignored them. He knew the real story lived in the arena. Paper. When the ship finally docked at the Sol Relay Station, crowds waited. Humans mostly, but a few alien observers too. They stood behind barriers, holding signs and cameras. Kane walked out last, carrying Baza in a soft carrier. The Wolverine poked his head out, good eye bright, ears up. People cheered, loud, clapping hands, whistling. Kane raised one hand, quiet, and kept walking. Reporters shouted questions. Sergeant Kane, how did you train it? What breed is that animal? Kane stopped once. He looked at the closest camera and spoke clear. Baza ain't trained. He's just Baza. That's enough. They moved through corridors to a waiting transport. Kane set the carrier down and opened it. Baza jumped out, limping a little but head high. He sniffed the air, then trotted forward like he owned the place. A small girl in the crowd broke through the line and ran up. She stopped short, staring at the scarred Wolverine with big eyes. Baza looked back, calm, no growl. The girl reached out slow and touched his head. Gentle Baza let her Kane. Watched quiet, then said, "Easy, mate, she is a friend." Baza huffed once and leaned into the touch. The girl smiled wide, and her parents pulled her back gentle. Later that night, on a quiet Earth orbital habitat, Kane sat outside under stars. Baza lay beside him on a warm pad, chewing a big bone. The habitat dome showed the blue planet below turning slow. Kane took a long drink from a bottle and looked down at the Wolverine. "You changed things, little mate," he said soft. "They won't forget us now." Baza stopped chewing, looked up with his one good eye, then went back to the bone like it did not matter. Weeks turned to months. The trials became legend. Aliens spoke of the Sovereign with respect, but always added the part about the Wolverine. Humans walked taller in mixed stations. No one laughed at them anymore. Traders offered better deals. Diplomats listened closer. When new species asked about Earth defenses, leaders just smiled and said, "We got persistence, and sometimes we bring friends who got even more." Kane retired from active duty after that. He took a small place on a green world with open fields and thick forests. Baza came with him. The wolverine grew older, slower, but no less fierce. He chased local wildlife, dug holes, fought anything that moved too close. Kane watched him from the porch every evening, beer in hand, smile on face. One night under a clear sky, Baza trotted up and dropped a dead rodent at Kane's feet. Proud as ever, Kane laughed low and ruffled the thick fur. "Good boy, mate. Still the toughest bastard around." Years later, when kids asked about the famous fight, Kane told the story simple. No fancy words, just facts. A big monster came to show off. A little one came to fight. They fought. The little one won, because he did not know how to lose. That's all there is to it. The kids listened wide-eyed, then ran off, pretending to be wolverines, snarling and charging. Kane stayed quiet after that. He looked at the stars, sometimes thinking about Harmony Spire, the blood, the silence. He never bragged, never needed to. The galaxy knew now. Humans did not make the ultimate predator. They just knew where to find one. And when they brought it, everything else learned to step back. Baza lived long for his kind. One morning he did not wake up. Kane found him curled, peaceful, under the porch. Kane buried him there with no words, just a marker, small and plain. He sat beside the spot long time, then stood up slow. "Thanks, mate," he said quiet. "You showed them good." The story lived on, long after Kane grew old, long after ships stopped coming to that quiet world. The title stayed the same. Aliens brought their ultimate predator, the human brought a wolverine, and the galaxy never forgot what happened when those two met.